everyone. We have part two of the quick graphic novel version today, which includes pages 39 to 73 or PDF pages 20 to 37. Volume 1, Chapter 7. When I returned to Ingolstadt, I found this letter from my father. My dear Victor, if you have probably waited for a letter so that you can arrange the date of your return. So how can I tell you about what has happened to us? William is dead. That sweet child who was so gentle. Victor, someone has murdered him. Last Thursday we all went for a walk in Plain Palace. It was a beautiful warm evening and we went farther than usual. Ernest, William. It was getting dark when we decided to turn back. William and Ernest had gone ahead of us, so we called for them. Have you seen William? We were playing and he ran away to hide. I tried to find him and waited for him, but he hasn't come back. We searched for him all night. I couldn't rest while he was lost. At about 5 in the morning, I discovered my lovely boy, pale and still. The marks on the murderer's fingers were on his neck. Oh God, I've murdered him. I let him wear a valuable picture of your mother around his neck. It's gone. It must be the reason someone killed him. We are doing everything we can to find the murderer, but that won't bring back my dearest William. Come home, dearest Victor. Only you can comfort Elizabeth. She cries all the time and blames herself for William's death. Will you return and comfort us all? Your loving father, Alphonse Frankenstein. My dear Frankenstein, this is terrible news. What are you going to do? I'm going to Geneva immediately. I said goodbye to my friends. As I got closer to home, I felt terribly sad and afraid. Although it was dark when I arrived in Geneva, I was unable to rest. I decided to visit the place where poor William had died. I crossed the lake by boat to arrive at Plain Palace. Lightning played on the mountains and thunder crashed above me. William, this is the song of your funeral. Notice the weather change. We've got another thunder and lightning storm here. As I said these words, I saw a figure in the darkness. A flash of lightning showed me who it was, the devil that I had created. What was he doing there? Could he be the murderer of my brother? I became sure that he was. He was the murderer. When I saw him again, he was among the rocks near the top of the mountain. He soon reached the top and disappeared. It was about 5 in the morning when I arrived at my father's house. I told the servants not to wake the family, and I went into the library. 6 years had passed since I left. My dearest Victor, Ernest, this is such a sad time, but I'm sure you will be able to help our father and Elizabeth. Elizabeth? She needs comfort the most. She blames herself for William's murder, but now we have found the murderer. You found him? How? It's impossible. It's impossible to follow him. I saw him last night and he was free. I don't know what you mean. We have discovered that the murderer is Justine Morowitz. Poor girl. Surely no one believes she did it. Remember, Justine Morowitz is a housekeeper servant for the Frankenstein family. No one did at first, but she has behaved very strangely recently. She is appearing in court today, so you will hear everything then. Justine became sick on the morning of the murder. She stayed in bed for several days. During this time, one of the servants found the picture of our mother that William had been wearing in her pocket. When she was arrested, she behaved very strangely. You are all wrong. I know the murderer, and it is not Justine. Papa, Victor says he knows the murderer. He says Justine is innocent. If she is, I hope the court does not decide that she is guilty. Your arrival, Victor, fills me with hope. I will never be happy again if Justine dies. She is innocent. Don't be afraid. Volume 1, Chapter 8. We spent a few sad hours together until we went to trial. When Justine came into the court, she looked calm and confident. She looked at us lovingly. Justine had been out on the night of the murder. Early the next morning, a woman who works at the market saw her near the place where William's body was found. I asked her what she was doing. She gave me a confused answer. Justine was called to defend herself at times. She almost cried, but she spoke clearly. God knows that I am completely innocent. I spent the evening at my aunt's house. On my way home, a man asked me if I had seen the child who was lost. I spent many hours looking for him. When I tried to return to Geneva, the gates were shut. I had to spend the night in a barn. This is a picture that the servant found in Justine's pocket. Elizabeth had placed it around William's neck before he disappeared. A sound of horror and anger filled the court. In the early morning, the sound of footsteps woke me. I decided to look for the missing child again. I was very tired when I met the market woman because I hadn't slept much. I don't know how the picture got into my pocket. I can't explain it. The court must decide now what happens to me. Although Elizabeth and others spoke well of Justine, people in the court were angry with her. The next morning, I went to the court. They decided Justine was guilty. But she has confessed. How will I ever believe again in human goodness? I will see her although she is guilty, and you must come with me, Victor. Oh, Justine, I thought you were innocent. I confess, but I lied. I am innocent. Oh, Justine, forgive me for not trusting you. Do not fear. I'll prove you're innocent. You will not die. I'm not afraid to die. I can die in peace now that you and your family know I'm innocent. The poor sufferer tried to comfort us all, but I, the true murderer, could not feel comforted. The next morning Justine died. Those I loved cried over the graves of William and Justine, the first victims of my creation. Volume 2, Chapter 1. I had wanted to help other people, but now everything was ruined. Full of guilt, I needed to be alone. I had caused some terrible evils, and I was very afraid that the monster would do something else. Notice he is finding some comfort in solitude right here, connecting back with nature. He's by himself up here on the mountains. This is part of that romantic movement, connecting with nature again. My father's health was shaken and Elizabeth was very sad. I felt deeply troubled. One day I suddenly decided to leave. Volume 2, Chapter 2. I went to Alpine Valley because I thought I could forget my sorrows there. After a time, I arrived at the village of Chamonix. I decided to climb to the top of Montevert. I remembered the view from the top. It had a great effect on me when I first saw it. The climb was dangerous. The tops on the mountains were hidden in clouds, and rain fell heavily from the dark sky. It was nearly noon when I arrived at the top of the mountain. I sat on a rock and looked at the wonderful view. My heart filled with joy. Allow me this happiness, or take me away from the joys of life. As I said this, I suddenly saw the figure of a huge man. He was coming towards me at great speed. It was the monster that I had created. I shook with anger and horror. I wanted to fight him and to kill him. Devil, aren't you afraid of me? Go away, disgusting creature, or stay and I will kill you. I expected this. All men hate the poor and unhappy. And you, my maker, you too hate me and want to kill me. Do your duty towards me, and I'll leave you and everyone else in peace. But if you refuse, I'll murder all your friends. You monster, devil, I'll finish the life that I so stupidly gave you. Be calm. Listen to me. Haven't I suffered enough? Life is dear to me, and I will defend it. Remember that you made me more powerful than yourself. However, I won't fight you. I am your creature. I was good, but unhappiness has made me bad. Make me happy and I will be good again. Go away. We can't be friends. We are enemies. Go or fight. How can I make you understand? You hate me, and so does everyone else. My enemies will share my unhappiness if you do nothing. Listen to me, Frankenstein, and then, if you can, and still want to, destroy the work of your hands. I hate these hands that made you. Come to the hut on the mountain. Listen to me. Decide if I will lead a good life or bring death to you and your friends. I decided to listen to his story for the first time. I realized that as his creator, I had duties towards him. I felt I ought to make him happy. So, as his creator, as his maker, he feels obligated to listen to his creation. So now the story is transitioning to the monster's perspective. Volume 2, Chapter 3. I can't remember my first days very well. I didn't recognize my different senses at first. I wanted to find a place that had shade, so I went to the forest near Ingolstadt. I ate some fruit and drank from the stream. Then I lay down and went to sleep. It was dark when I woke up. I felt cold and frightened. I had taken some clothes from your apartment, but they were not warm enough. I sat and cried. Several days and nights passed. I slowly began to understand what I saw and heard. Sometimes I tried to copy the songs of the birds, but I couldn't. The noises I made frightened me into silence again. There was very little food. Often it took me the whole day to find a few nuts. I really wanted food and shelter. Eventually I saw a small hut. This was a new sighting to me. I examined it with interest. The door was open, so I went in. An old man was preparing his breakfast over a fire. When he saw me, he screamed and ran away. I was surprised, but I liked the hut very much. Snow and rain could not get in there. I hungrily ate the old man's breakfast. Then I lay down and fell asleep. It was noon when I woke up. The sun was warm, so I decided to travel farther. I walked for several hours until I arrived at a village. As I entered one of the cottages, the children inside screamed, and one of the women fainted. Some of the people in the village ran away, and others attacked me with stones. I ran away back to the fields. I hid in a small hut. There was nothing in it, but it was next to a pleasant cottage. I didn't dare enter the cottage after what had happened in the village. My hut was made of wood and was very low. I could only sit in it with difficulty. There was no wood on the floor, and the wind came in, but it was a good shelter. I lay down and felt happy to have a shelter from the cold and from the unkindness of humans. The next morning I drank from the stream and ate some bread I had stolen. I watched the people in the cottage, a gentle young girl, an unhappy young man, and an old man. They showed such kindness and love for each other that I began to experience new feelings. They were a mixture of pain and pleasure. I found them difficult to bear. When people came, the people in the cottages made light with candles. I was surprised. When night came, the people in the cottage made light with candles. I was surprised and pleased I could continue watching them. Volume 2, Chapter 4. The next day passed in the same way. I soon realized that the old man was blind. The young people showed him much love and respect. I wanted very much to join them, but I didn't dare. I stayed in my hut and tried to understand them. They weren't happy, although I couldn't see a reason for their unhappiness. I was very affected by it. Why were such gentle creatures unhappy? Later I discovered one reason. They were poor. They ate only vegetables and drank the milk of one cow. They were usually hungry, especially the young people. Often they gave the old man food when they had none for themselves. When I realized this, I stopped stealing their food. I ate only fruit and nuts from the forest. I found another way I could help them. At night, I often brought them wood for their fire. And slowly, I discovered that The words they spoke produced pleasure or pain, smiles or sadness. Slowly I learned the names they gave to the most familiar things. I learned the words fire, milk, bread, wood, and the names of the people in the cottage. The old man was father. The girl was sister or Agatha. The young man was Felix, brother or son. I was very happy when I discovered the meanings of these words and could say them. I heard other words too, good, dearest, and unhappy, but I didn't understand them. I spent the winter in this hut. I began to love the people in the cottage. When they were unhappy, I felt sad. When they were happy, I was happy too. Felix was always the saddest. He seemed to suffer deeply, but he was able to give pleasure to his sister. He gave her the first little white flower that came up in the snow. I admired the beauty of these people, but when I saw myself in a pool of water, I was terrified. At first I couldn't believe what I saw. Then I felt sad and ashamed. I was a monster. Every day I did the same thing. I slept during the day and went into the forest at night. I collected my own food and wood for the family. Often I cleared their path of snow. This surprised them very much. I thought that I could make them happy, and I wanted to win their love To do this, I tried hard to learn their language. Volume 2, Chapter 5. Spring arrived, but Felix was still very sad. Then a visitor came. Felix? My sweet Sappy. Felix was extremely happy. The lady didn't seem to understand him, but smiled. The days passed peacefully. Joy had taken the place of sadness. Felix began to teach Sappy his language. I watched them closely, too, so that I could learn. Sappy and I improved quickly. 2 months later, I could understand most of the words the family said. I listened too as Felix taught Sappy history. I learned about the manners, governments, and religions of different countries. Could people be so good, so wonderful, so powerful, and at the same time so dreadful? When I heard the terrible things people had done, I turned away in horror. I thought about myself. What was I? I knew nothing about my creation or my creator. I was extremely ugly, and I wasn't the same as men. I learned about men and women, the birth of children and families, but where were my friends and family? No parents had taken care of me and loved me as a child. What was I? Oh, sorry guys, I can't remember which 37 is where we're going to stop. Volume 2, Chapter 6. The family, who were they? The de Lacys from Paris. They came from a good French family. Sappy's father had ruined them. He was a Turkish merchant who had lived in Paris for many years. Then the government threw him into a prison and sentenced him to death. There was no reason for this. People said the government disliked his religion and his wealth. Felix was by chance at this man's trial. Felix promised to get him out of prison. The Turk offered him money, but Felix refused. Then he saw Sappy and wanted to marry her. Felix took Sappy and her father out of France. The merchant encouraged Felix's hopes for Sappy, but secretly he did not want her to marry a Christian. He planned to take his daughter away. The merchant's escape was soon discovered, and Felix's father and sister were thrown into prison. News of this reached Felix, who hurried back to Paris. He was thrown into prison too. He and his father and sister stayed there for 5 months. Then all their money was taken away, and they were sent out of the country forever. The merchant heard that Felix had no money. He told his daughter not to think of Felix anymore. A few days later, he left for Constantinople. Sappy was now alone. In her father's paper, she found the name of Felix's new home in Germany. She decided to go there. Volume 2, Chapter 7. This was a story of the dear people in the cottage. I learned to admire goodness and to dislike the wrong things people do. One night in the forest, I found some books and a letter in a leather bag. I quickly began to read them. One of the books was Paradise Lost. We have an allusion here, a literary reference to the story Paradise Lost. And this is a biblical allusion as well. I read it as a true history. I was not like Adam. So Adam and Eve from the Bible. I was not linked to anyone else like him. But he was happy and I was miserable. Much earlier, I had found some papers in the clothes I had taken from your apartment. I began to read them carefully. They were your journals of the months before my creation. Here they are. They describe in detail my disgusting body. I felt sick as I read them. Why did you make a monster? Even you cannot look at me. You made me not the same as you, but worse. My Creator had left me, and in my anger and unhappiness I cursed him. I decided to introduce myself to the people in the cottage when the time was right. Months passed. Then one day, when the old man was alone, I knocked on the door of the cottage. Who's there? Come in. Pardon me, I'm a traveler and I need a little rest. Could I sit for a few minutes by the fire? Come in, but I can't offer you any food because I'm blind. I have food. I only need warmth and rest. I'm an unfortunate creature. I have no relation or friend in the world. I'm now going to claim the protection of some friends. These good people have never seen me. If I fail with them, no one will ever be my friend. If these friends are good and kind, there's no need to lose hope. They are kind, but where they should see a kind friend, they only see a monster. I have shown them kindness, but they believe I want to injure them. Where do they live? Near here. Perhaps I can help. What are the names of these friends? At that moment, I heard the steps of the younger people. Now is the time. Save and protect me. You and your family are the friends I'm looking for. Great God, who are you? I cannot describe their horror when they saw me. Agatha fainted, and Safi ran away. Felix tore me from his father. He threw me to the ground and hit me with a stick. Full of pain and sadness, I escaped. I escaped to my hut. They didn't see where I went.